Small projects, it's another issue. That's how we manage with the local banks. Crédit Agricole du Maroc, a bank, local bank, who's financing farmers for solar pumping. And with this bank, now today, we have a project for that. We have for solar roofs with EBRD, the MORCEF, Moroccan Sustainable Energy Financial Facility, that can help solar roofs for industries. And they have 10% grant, and 90%, and the rest is loan. But the key was the economy of the project. That's why subsidies is very important, to stop subsidizing fossil fuel or electricity. Then you have the economy of the project. That's very important. That's why I hope I understand your question, but the new energy transition is because we are linked to this new price of renewables. Solar panel, the last standards for PV is in Abu Dhabi, they reached less than 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So that you cannot imagine how cheap it can be. So it's very important. Second point is of the industry. Industry is very important for because we can create jobs in this field. All countries in Africa can have really a possibility for industries in this field. We are producing, to answer your question, today we have factories for solar panels, but we are still importing solar panels, but we have a factory. And for batteries, that's the new things. During the COP22 in Marrakesh, we inaugurated a new factory plant, and they're taking batteries from, used batteries from electric cars, and now they're going to use cheap batteries for households, for factories, and they can be used for 10 years. But they will be very cheap, so that's why it's changing the way of storing electricity in a cheap way. It's a very new solution, and some projects are developed now today, and we have the factory in Casablanca. So it's something that is very important. We can start by importing. It's not a problem for that, but step by step, like we did for the wind, we started not having almost only 15% of the part of the projects developed in the country. Now we are reaching 70%. The blades factory in Tangier is one of the last factory opened in the country. So we have 70% of the spare parts of the windmills developed in the country. That's strategy, but you need a vision. You need to have objectives, not only for 1 or 2 projects, but for the next 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take some more questions. Some more questions. The man at the end, then the person and the guy seated at the middle. We'll take 2 questions, then we'll take the answers, then we'll take more questions from the audience.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dona Audikena, project coordinator for the Heinrich Böll Foundation, Nigeria. I think my question would be around the Nigeria-Morocco gas master plan. Not too many of us would know the details of that, probably except the heading and the distance. But my question would be about how realistic, how possible is this project? Is there a strategy or a plan that's been established? I know something was supposed to be ready sometime around July 2018, this year. I don't know if that strategy or plan is available, but it would be nice for us to actually know what is Morocco's expectation as regards to probably the quantity of gas that is supposed to leave Nigeria, who's supposed to fund the project, basically, and how is the funding going to look like? And then the next question would probably be, how is Nigeria, I don't know if we have anybody from NNPC or on that deal here, but how is Nigeria planning to balance that particular project with our domestic gas flaring exercise or scale up, basically in the long term? I know the project is supposed to stretch like 25 years, but how are we supposed to sustain the workability of that project during this period of time? And what's Morocco's expectation of the project?
Thank you. We have one more question.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ayoub Shajaddin. I'm an on-grade advisor working within GIZ for the Nigerian Energy Support Program. I work mainly on renewable energy for the on-grade side.
Close.
Personally, from my background, I can say that the Moroccan experience in renewable energy and also in energy efficiency is really outstanding, a worth sharing story, success story. I mean, 2 years ago, the renewable energy was able to supply 34% of the kingdom's needs. Also, the kingdom is doing great on the energy efficiency, the commitment of 2030, 2020. But I can say that the Nigerian energy sector is the structure of this energy structure in Nigeria is different from Moroccan structure, and the Moroccan model seems to be, let's say, difficult or facing challenges to be implemented in Nigeria. So my question to Mazen, or from your perspective, what adjustment should be done on this Moroccan model, or what new model do you suggest is good for Nigeria, seeing that even the needs of Nigeria are quite different? Bringing electricity to 80 million people. There are also problems on the distribution side with the discos. So I'm asking about your advice, your specific advice for the Nigerian model. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think we'll take the answers from the. Please, does anybody know about the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline first? Okay, we'll find out about the gas pipeline, and then we will let you know. But we'll talk about the second question.
Yes.
The various models, and I would like the speakers to also talk about a bit about the financing model, because there was a question, why subsidies, that hasn't been answered across the entire energy value chain, because that goes to the heart of the problem we are talking about, distortion of prices. So I would like maybe 2 or 3 speakers to please address, and how can Nigeria avoid the mistakes that have been made by Morocco going forward? Thank you very much. I'll start with, I'll go one after.
Okay, so I'll answer the question about the advice that we would give. I think the key is realism in order to develop energy. So first of all, we need to understand where the clients are, if they are concentrated, if they are in different locations, what is the source of energy that is available nearby, and have a realistic mix. For example, renewable could be used with a backup in gas or in diesel. There could be also a different type of renewable used mixed. For example, hydro could be mixed with solar to make pumping. We could use the existing network of microgrid that is working, and have simply gradually PV, for example, connected to it, not to compromise stability. The most important thing is to do it gradually and to use as much as possible the resource that is nearby. And for example, as Madam said, in the south of Nigeria, gas is available, is very cheap. So there needs to be a study to understand at the same time the proximity of the grid, the clients, and the energy resource and the needs in each area. And it's not necessarily homogeneous. There's not a magical wand like one solution. This would be my opinion.
Okay, Shegun, I would like you to talk about the optimal energy mix and pricing. Why subsidies at all for energy? It's
The Nigerian government plans to have an energy mix in favor of renewables at least 30% by 2030. In attempting to generate about 30 gigawatt also. I think Morocco, the mix is higher. We're looking at over 50. The world is actually moving towards sustainable energy, and that's also the space where Nigeria should be looking at. For us, under the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, we are more ambitious. We're looking at 40%. So that by year 2030, 40% of energy generated in Nigeria should be from renewable energy. Clearly right now, I can also tell you some of the reasons why we feel so. Several communities are not connected to the grid. The grid is currently challenged, so we don't see in the next 5-10 years I mean, how we can raise $100 billion to fix the grid. We rather advise to put it on distributed energy and see how, how much you can do, especially for small businesses. We've seen that, done by our members in agriculture. My company, we are focused on powering small businesses, the likes of barber shops, interestingly, and they're going solar. Okay, that's one. Then secondly, one of the other, one factor that we feel might also help strongly to achieve this energy mix will be the issue of net metering. Okay, so Morocco has a net metering policy in place. So you can generate energy and sell to the grid. As I speak to you right now, I live in a house in Lagos that is powered by a 4-kilowatt solar solution with battery backups. As I speak right now, there's nobody at home. So the energy generated is just wasting away. So if I can sell to the grid through net metering, then I can guarantee you virtually every Nigerian will want to put solar on their rooftops because you can sell the excess to the grid and make some money. All right. Then the issue of subsidy is a subsidy, especially in renewable energy, has been seen as a major disruption to market forces. You are taking the market away from the demand and supply. I'm an economist, and we're taught the principles of demand and supply. Let that determine the price. Why subsidize fossil fuel? Why everybody is going green? We are trying to promote green energy, and yet we are still subsidizing fossil fuel. Then it does a lot of things. One, of course, is the distortion. Number two is that it discourages people from going green because they will just say, hey, let me go power my diesel generator, it's cheaper. Okay, so it also affects the financial modeling. It discourages investors from even coming to your market. I can tell you several investors who should be looking at Nigerian market currently will tell you, it's not run by market forces. Today, I signed a PPA at 11.5 cents, and tomorrow someone says, hey, it has to be 7.5. Who knows if it has to be 5 the day after? So that's, some of the major issues and challenges that we have. But for us, and for me personally, and I start to be, corrected, I feel the best way to power Nigeria, now and the nearest future, is renewable energy, particularly distributed energy. Because, if we have a 20 gigawatt of suppressed, demand, even if we generate 10,000 megawatts today, we cannot plug it on the national grid. It will collapse. Okay, so why can't every one of us have 4 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts on their rooftops, and then you aggregate it and you have 10 gigawatts of renewable energy. So to me, that's, where I also feel we need to learn from our friends from Morocco.
You want to contribute?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think, well, historically, the issue of the subsidy has been to ensure that power is available and affordable to everybody. But we've been caught up then with an increasing demand of power without meeting the infrastructural needs to continue to supply that power. So that's why we are where we are today. However, I think that we shouldn't engage in a discussion that might not yield fruit. The situation we have today has massive opportunities, even with the policies as they are. The idea is that you have a grid that works. Our grid has limitations, but we can still take what you do to generate power and deploy it in an off-grid capacity. Lagos State is an example. They are intending to go off-grid, that is off the national grid, by 2022 or 2023. So they're generating power within the state. It's still the same power, but it's not just being fed through the national grid. It is still a massive business opportunity that many other states also want to do. But they might have financial and technological problems to do that. Lagos is able to do it because they have the money. And they are able to put together the kind of financing that it's required to solve that problem. So I don't think we should get caught up in whether it is a grid or off-grid. What we should be talking about, as somebody asked from the audience, is what are those business models that can work? And using the expertise and technology you have, what we then need to do is to redesign that distribution, as Segun has said, distribution of that power. I still insist that in Nigeria, we have an advantage of various power sources. And it will be unfair not to leverage the competitive advantages of those powers. Wind power, gas power. Gas power is clean power, and it is one of the targets for Nigeria to make sure that it uses gas to reduce emissions as we achieve our GDP growth. About 5 years ago, we were on the track to become a 7% growth rate by 2020. In fact, it was a slogan that everybody knew. And why we didn't achieve it, one of the main reasons why we haven't achieved it is that we have a power deficiency. We must solve that power deficiency, off-grid or on-grid. What we need to do is to think about different ways of generating that power and how else we can distribute it. We have the policies that support what I'm saying. We have the mini-grid policy, the off-grid policy, we have the gas policy. We do have the policies. It's to sit down and think about how we can structure that policy to work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's take more questions from the audience. There's a man seated behind who's been raising his hand. I'd like you to give him the microphone.
Thank you very much. My name is Kabir Adamu. I work with Bank of Agriculture. While we are discussing about enhancing opportunities, regarding the partnership between Morocco and Nigeria, I think it is equally important to mention some of the benefits that Nigeria has started to get from this collaboration. As a bank, through the Group Credit Agricole du Maroc, which is the main agric bank in Morocco and the third largest bank in Morocco, Bank of Agriculture has been getting support in capacity building in various areas. One area is in the area of primary production, taking us through best practices, how to increase production, through efficient application of inputs and other things. Other areas are in aggregation, marketing, and processing. We are currently working on the 2019 capacity building plan with the bank. So far they have trained over 10 of our staff pro bono without any expense to the bank. I think I have to mention this for recognition and to thank the Moroccan government for this African brotherhood support. Thank you.
Any more questions, clarifications? Okay, somebody's raising his hand. Okay, the man seated in the middle, he hasn't spoken yet. Let him speak.
Okay, my name is Mohammed Suleiman from Nexim Bank. Actually, I'm not an energy expert, so I may talk on some extent a layman perspective. Yep. Yeah. We monitored from the consumer perspective how the developments from the public sector driven to the private sector to some extent. However, what we thought was that given the discourse and GENCOS, GENCOS is like 50-50 ownership or sort of, and then the discourse private sector ownership. Our thinking was that the discourse will take over the distribution, and then the investment needed in the sector will be provided by those companies. But I don't know. The way I understand it is that it is unfortunate that the blame are strongly on discourse that they are not actually, either they are not buying the powers from the GENCOs, or that they are not distributing. And in some corners, you say, okay, no, at the lower end of the table, people are not actually paying for the electricity. So I'm from the Northeast. So, and not until recently that they started talking about maybe having new companies to take over Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. If you go to these three states, they have more stable lights than even Abuja. And when I asked what was the secret, they said, no, it's government that provides the lights, not the discourse. So I want the experts in the field to maybe, if they can tell us, something, or explain this. Sorry, like I said, I'm not an energy expert, so.
Okay, there's a man, we'll take 2 more questions. There's a man behind you.
Yeah.
And we'll take some more comments. Then we'll do the wrap-up, because I'm being told that time is...
Okay, my name is Wale Alabi. I just want to know, for my knowledge's sake, and probably for others, is Morocco doing anything on nuclear energy, as in using nuclear energy to generate electricity? I want to know so that Nigeria can learn from that. Then to the director of Mazini, if I'm not making a mistake, you made mention of collaboration between your firm and universities. In what way? Can you expatiate on this so that our players in Nigeria, energy experts, can do same, probably collaborate with an ABU or University of Ibadan and others? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll take 1 more question from the front, and then we will... Okay, there are 2 more questions from the front. Then we will answer as many of the questions as we can, and then...
Okay, thank you, Belije, for giving me another opportunity. Adetunji Romini, Solar-Centric again. So the next question, to go straight to it, is on regulation. We can see very clearly the differences between the 2 countries now in terms of how we have to, improve power generation or access to energy. For off-grid, I've been advocating that maybe NERC needs to let go for the state governments. Now, some questions have come up on the DISCO side, which for me are the reasons why I've been advocating. We've had state governments, and now elections around the corner again. You start hearing, I will give you power, I will give you power. They will come into power by transformers, and the DISCOs will not connect them, for the reasons that you and I know very well. And I'm happy you've launched area market. So, yes, 9 megawatts. Though gas. So we know what you went through as well. Based on that, do you think if NERC lets go off-grid, and I'm saying off-grid, not on-grid system, off-grid to the states, NERC could come up with the framework, so to say, but let the states have flexibility in terms of how they implement. The reason is this: I have a few and a growing number of state governments that we've been engaged together in terms of power generation and supply for their rural development areas, as well as close communities, close to what you've done as well. And a lot of this thing keeps coming up in that we need to refer to Abuja to do ABCD, that's NERC. So it's now more of if the states could begin at a point to have independence in terms of the decisions they make. Do you think this would help? That's the question I have. And on, okay, maybe I should leave the panels to respond to those questions. Don't let me,
okay, we'll take
thanks.
The last person in front, and then we'll let the panel answer the questions. I guess I will answer. The question has been thrown to me, so I'll have to answer.
Okay, my name is Lulishki, and I'm from the OCPPC Policy Center. I think so far we have been listening to the panelists telling us about respective national experiences and lessons learned, and exploring the possible potentials of doing something together. I think there is another dimension that also needs to be addressed: what Morocco and Nigeria could, in some kind of triangular scheme, do for other African countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess we'll start from
yeah.
Do you want to address any of the questions?
Yeah, let me
there was
address.
a question on collaboration, then on the discourse.
Yes.
A couple of issues.
The thing is, let's not worship on the altar of buzzwords and slogans. And we keep on throwing that around in Nigeria. You know, I was at the send-off of Roseanne of USAID and the DFID. And, you know, her speech, she was saying, she came to Nigeria and then, you know, after 3 years, she wakes up at night with whispers of off-grid, on-grid, near-grid, I'm almost grid, let's go grid. You know, at the end of the day, when you touch a live wire, it's electrons, and it will shock you, whether it's off-grid, near-grid, on-grid, right? So let's not get sucked into all these grid discussions. The bottom line is energy access. In Morocco, given their own structure, you know, they have a very robust grid, and they have agencies that, for lack of a better word, centralize project development and PPPs. Like she said, every policy that we need to deliver energy to the people and industries already exists. The technology is proven, the customers are there. Let me give you an example. I'm actually very upbeat about the power sector. I apologize if you thought I was negative, right? I'm quite upbeat. The reason why I'm upbeat is I look at the telecom sector, right? I used to work in Transcorp, and we bought Nitel and MTEL, and this building, Hilton. And I remember at a board meeting, and we sat down, we had the BPE in the boardroom, and we said we wanted to modernize the Hilton, which has happened in the last 1 year. This was 2007. And for some reason, the BPE said no, we couldn't securitize the income coming to the owners' returns, in order to raise finance to modernize the Hilton, right? That anecdote is one reason why the question about the discos, gencos exists. The discos are still owned 40% by the BPE and the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated. And there's been a lot of volatility around the tariffs. Before the last election, the government, in its own wisdom, decided to reduce the tariffs for political reasons, and the sector has struggled because of that. Now, my focus is in terms of financing. And if we don't get the financing model right, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about off-grid, on-grid, near-grid, or I'm almost grid. You're talking about an environment where there is an expected IRR. Right? You're talking about an environment where people are paying Naira, and half the time you're trying to pay a dollar facility, right? So it doesn't matter what the technology is. I'm technology agnostic. It doesn't matter whether it's on-grid or off-grid. It doesn't matter what the technology is. The biggest thing we need to learn from Morocco, and I think where the opportunity is in terms of collaborating on how do you allocate risk. And when you know how you allocate risk, what sort of funding do you require for that particular risk, for that particular on-grid, off-grid, or near-grid? I think that's one fundamental area I think that we can sit down in one room and develop a framework. You've attracted some really interesting capital for your projects. And I think that same capital in the Azura project was attracted and is also waiting to come into every kind of grid scenario. You know, so that's just a high level. But back to the one about Yola.
Yola Disco. Yola Disco declared a force majeure after privatization, and they didn't want to sell power or collect anymore in those 3 states, and so they left. Why? Because of the issues in the Northeast. And now, the power you're getting, because of low population distribution, and also because the government is the ones giving you the power, I can say you're getting almost free power, right? And so that's why you're getting almost 24-hour electricity, you know. But just to wrap it up, in terms of third party, in terms of the triangle, I think it exists. We know how to operate in very difficult markets. You know how to attract capital, right? And in West Africa, you have very difficult markets. So we have the experience. They say if you can do business in Nigeria, you can do business anywhere. So the tendency is that Morocco in the past has been facing Europe and probably been used to the European way of doing business. You're coming into West Africa, and I think that the Nigerians are the toughest, most resilient businessmen. That's the reason why Dangote is the richest black man in the world, or richest African. So I think that there are areas where we can learn from you. You pick up our own competitive advantages, and we can replicate that model not only in Nigeria, but also across the region.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Shegun, do you want to?
Yeah, okay, my own just quick intervention is to the demand from Nexim Bank. I think the issue of, I believe strongly that the price of electricity in Nigeria is not cost reflective. I still feel electricity outside petroleum product is still being subsidized. Okay, so meanwhile, and that's the reason why you have this issue of is it the chicken or the egg, which one comes first? So these codes, they've bought those assets, they cannot generate enough revenue to cover their costs. That hinders further investment into the sector. And then it becomes a vicious circle, all right? So, if pricing is more competitive, let people actually pay for the true price of electricity and energy, it will increase investment. Meanwhile, people are already paying currently. Okay, so it baffles me why we can't just take that bold step of commercializing the pricing. So people are buying diesel in their generators, average of 140 naira per kilowatt hour. In fact, there are some mini grids that we've seen some very, some crazy prices that we feel that Nigerians cannot pay. 200 naira per kilowatt hour. And people are paying. They just need electricity. And if you are using it for productive activities, then it becomes more viable. And then people can invest more. So if pricing of electricity in Nigeria is commercially driven, I assume that more investment will come in, people will break even, make their profits, and then we see more energy connected to Nigerians.
Yeah. Thank you. Tariq, do you?
Yes.
Last words?
Yes, in terms of cooperation with education for Mazen, what we do is, of course, we receive a lot of trainees, and some of them become involved in Mazen, they become part of Mazen. Then we have research and development platform. We have 200 hectares that is open to cooperation with the laboratories, with universities. And then we have we choose some students from some schools that have the potential, and we provide them with the training to become part of the ecosystem. These are part of the collaboration. I'd like to answer also the question of Mr. Lulishki. Regarding the replication of the model of the triangle cooperation. It appears that the countries that invest in renewable energy tend to develop an ecosystem. This happened in Spain. They invested a lot at the beginning, and now today they export the know-how. Morocco started a few years ago, just 3-4 years, and they start already to export the knowledge and the expertise. And I think if we work together, either we co-invest or we fund together projects in Nigeria, they will have their own ecosystem and they will be competitive for a part of the chain because they are local, because they know the market. So for sure, we will propose common solutions to go and to seek other markets in the region.
Okay, thank you. Last words. Can we make it brief?
Very brief. On this discussion about the bank and how the Crédit Agricole is doing marketing and things, it's very important that you need to have capacity building and training for people who are sizing and installing, for example, solar pumps. At the same time, we are training for the banks, for the bankers. Another point concerning Mr. Enawi mentioned this morning, confidence. In the energy sector, when you talk about 30 years project, you need, or 25 years project, you need confidence between the actors. That's how we can manage to finance it. So how we can manage to have a good price for your electricity. On the question on nuclear, price of nuclear is very high today because of safety reasons, because of many reasons. So that's why nuclear is maybe not more an issue for some countries. On the regulation, it's the key. We don't have access to the grid. We had a monopoly on with the utility before. We opened this. It was a big discussion with the utility, and we managed to have open the grid for very high tension. We don't have net metering for low tension, but we have for very high tension access to the grid. Today we have more than 500 megawatt of wind project developed by the private sector for the private sector. So that's very important that you have regulation for developing project. Last point concerning this triangular question, it's very important. And I believe, knowing the knowledge of Nigeria on natural gas, the knowledge of Morocco on renewables, there is 9 countries between Morocco and Nigeria. This gasoduct pipeline, the project can be really a project of development, not only between our 2 countries, but for all the 11 countries. Because having this approach, knowing the knowledge, it's not only transporting natural gas, it's bringing electricity to all those countries. That's very important, that it will be a real development project for the continent. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I will wish to draw the curtain on this section of the program. The discussions are supposed to continue, and so as well as the collaborations. I would just like to answer the last question. Somebody asked a question about area, which area market, and it's an off-grid. Just to say that when we started, we were told that we were shut down by the presidency. We did not listen to them. Do not let people stop you. Nigerians need electricity. The only thing is let the economics of the project or the commerciality of the project drive it. That's right. Everybody wants to save money. And whoever you help save money will take you as a service provider. And that's what alludes to what Madam has said. And that's the long and short of it. So do not let regulations, they will be there for the rest of our lives. Do not let government. And I think last month the president tweeted about the project in his Twitter handle to show everybody how far we had come. But when we started, we were told that we would never accept that he would never accept 120 naira per kilowatt hour. He would never accept this, and we simply ignored it. We said, listen, this makes commercial sense, and we're going to do it. And we went ahead and we did it. And today, the project is being commissioned, that people are buying electricity, and it's being touted even by the president as a success story. So do not let people stop you. Thank you very much. And with that, let the collaborations happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a very wonderful team. As a step down, let's appreciate them, just celebrate them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very quickly, we'll move on to the next panel, which is actually the third one today, and it is focused on mobilizing local resources, the role of the financial market. Okay, so we'll try to determine the venue for the lunch. But when we come back, we'll quickly take the last two of the panel discussion. Is that? Okay, so the venue for the lunch, which will be for about 45 minutes or thereabout, is just the next room to this place. When you go out, just go in Oriental Restaurant. That's the venue for the lunch.